June 20th. This was a memorable situation. We have the Rickwood Classic, of course, in Birmingham, Alabama. This was a very special MLB game that they arranged as kind of a celebration, of course, of the Negro Leagues. And the timing of it ends up being kind of stunning because this is, of course, when Willie Mays passes away as well. So this was, of course, a memorable game, and it would have been anyway, but there was a lot going on with kind of that week and that celebration in Birmingham. But what do you remember about that?
Yeah, so it's Reggie Jackson taking the mic, and I think what was so powerful about it is Reggie was not part of that first generation to integrate the game. He was the generation that followed. I believe he debuted in like 67, so he would have grown up knowing that someone of his complexion could play Major League Baseball. And I think just if I could sum up, what he said, he described sort of the mixed emotions of visiting Rickwood and sort of the anger and the hurt that does not fade over time, even though we've made, a lot of progress in our society. There's this anger and this hurt to him that he put on full display for everyone. There was an explicit reference to lynching, the idea that if he mouthed off there, he would have been strung up in an oak tree. That's the actual quote. And it's one of those things where it was, unscripted, it was powerful, it was raw. And I think the Fox broadcast deserves some credit because they knew what they were doing when they turned the mic over to someone like Reggie Jackson, someone who's outspoken and very proud of who he is and proud of where he came from. So it was we're doing a lot of funny stuff on here. This was not funny. This was just a very powerful and real moment that was part of this great broadcast of the game at Rickwood.
The minor league game that occurred the day before, at which Willie Mays' death was announced. Willie, an Alabama native. That moment of the crowd shot standing up in memoriam for Willie in that place where he had played, that felt very powerful. September 19th, Shohei Ohtani strolls into the depot in Miami, steps away from 50-50 and goes 6 for 6, homering thrice. In one of the most unforgettable performances we will ever see in a single day. We're going to say, that 50-50 ball that someone bought for $4.39 million, eminent domain. That is now state-owned. Sorry, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Soviet Union, but you can just say that's mine now. So we're going to take that. That's ours. And
that's the ball. That's definitely the ball we want in there.
At 9:10 p.m. Central Time. John Heyman tweeted, breaking, Juan Soto to the Mets, $765 million, 15 years.
Oh, okay. Did he go all caps with the breaking?
No.
Wow. If he's not using it then, I mean, that is a large number, Jake Mintz. That's a large number. Now, I gotta say, this is kind of what, for I don't know how many the last however many years, this was kind of the tweet we were waiting for. But now that it is real, now that Juan Soto is going to go to the Mets for well over $700 million, let's rewind a year ago. Shohei Ohtani gets $700 million. This is a hell of a lot more money than Shohei Ohtani.
Is Juan Soto, quote unquote, worth this much money? No, he's not. He's not. No player really is worth this. But it doesn't matter. The money is only as important as what it allows or restricts you from doing. And for Steve Cohen, a top 100 rich person on the planet, this is a drop in the bucket.
Yeah. And while the Mets are not the only team that has blasted into the luxury tax, they do occupy their own space in not caring about the repercussions. Your draft pick is this amount lower. You have this amount of international bonus money less to spend. You have to pay X dollars on top of X dollars on top of X dollars. They are operating in a different space. And that was the whole point of Steve Cohen, Mets fan, buying the Mets and treating this like what we all fantasize about what we would do if we had infinite money and could just get our favorite players on our favorite teams on a win. Game 5, the New York Yankees collapsed. How should we remember the 5th inning of Game 5 of the 2024 World Series? I think if we are going to zoom in on a single moment, it has to be... I think it's still Garrett Cole not covering first more than Aaron Judge dropping the fly ball, but I'm willing to be talked in the other direction. There was a lot of weird things about this play for sure, but I think that's still the moment I will remember even more than Judge dropping the fly ball. You might recall that Shohei Ohtani's interpreter, Mizuhara, was apparently lying to him for years and stealing millions of dollars from the biggest baseball star in the planet. Yeah, that was kind of the big deal. Mizuhara, poker game with David Fletcher and who we now learn to be the true problem of this whole situation, Bookmaker 1, a.k.a. Matthew Boyer, a.k.a. the guy that was like, yeah, sure, you can take as much money as you want because surely Shohei Ohtani is bankrolling it.
The most underrated part of that entire time is how the inability for various people to communicate with one another led to so much chaos. Whether it was the Dodgers not conveying things to Ohtani or Ohtani not conveying things to CAA, the Tower of Babel is what got this thing rolling on the path to mayhem. And so if someone had just popped out Google Translate, there's a chance this goes down in a much different fashion. Bailey, what do you remember from this specific time?
Well, in terms of the translation issues, it's the fact that Ippei gave an apology to the Dodgers locker room before their first fixture of the season. And Shohei didn't exactly know what he was talking about or apologizing for. And then he just dipped, because he said, I have some legal things I have to deal with.
Finishes the year 1-0. Ippei?
Yes, the Dodgers did. Yes, I believe it was after the first game.
Yeah, right.
He was
in the dugout.
When he was like, oh, yeah. And then Ohtani was like, excuse me, what are you apologizing for? Also, just all the lying between Ippei and the Dodgers, all those things to your point. There's so much here. There's so much to choose from here. This was obviously one of the biggest stories of the season. The fact that Ohtani was like, yeah, okay, I had millions of dollars sold for me. I'm just going to go on and have one of the greatest seasons of all time anyway. That's fine. Is still one of the most astonishing things that we could possibly have unfolded after that.
I think the lasting impact of what Ippei did is unfortunate because it will stick with Ohtani forever in a way that I'm not sure it deserves to. And that is both internally within baseball of frustrated, jealous pitchers whining about how MLB is protecting their guy, which they would never say publicly, but I have certainly heard privately. And then like fans chanting at Shohei, what's the line, Shohei? Like that stuff is relatively harmless, but it's just an unnecessary blot on the legacy of an all-time great player that always does need to be brought up, which if you believe all the reporting, as we do, is by no fault of his own. And that's a bummer.